Welcome to episode 6 of Kitchenventions. I'm your host Neal, and today we're recreating your favorite restaurant dishes. We're going to take a dish that's so famous in a restaurant you wouldn't possibly think we could make the equivalent of it, and do it. So, first up, we're doing Pancake Pantry's sweet potato pancakes with their cinnamon cream sauce. We're also doing Panera's cinnamon crunch bagels, P.F. Chang's chicken lettuce wraps, and then finally Chick-fil-A's chicken sandwich with their signature Chick-fil-A sauce. So it's going to be a great way to learn how to make these delicious dishes a lot cheaper at home. Stick around.
Alright, so today I'll be remaking a popular pancake dish from a local restaurant, the Pancake Pantry. I'll be making sweet potato pancakes with a special maple cream cinnamon syrup to go along with it. And it's going to be really delicious. So to begin, we're going to start by adding our dry ingredients, which is just a half a cup of flour. And we also have a cup and a half of flour, and we also have a teaspoon of salt and 3½ teaspoons of baking powder. Alright, and we're going to mix that together just a bit. Alright, so now we got these ingredients in the bowl, and we're going to add a half a teaspoon of cinnamon and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg to our pancake mix. I'm going to mix that all in. So we have our dry ingredients all mixed together before we start adding the wet ingredients. Alright, so now we're going to add 2 eggs and we're going to beat them into our dry bowl. Mixing them all together. Alright, and to that, to get some extra moisture, we're also going to add another cup and a half of milk. And finally, we're going to add a quarter cup of butter. And about a cup and a half of mashed sweet potato. Before we started filming, we took a baked potato and we cooked it in the microwave for about 7 minutes. That got it baked, and then we mashed up about a cup and a quarter of it. We're going to add that all into our pancake mix. I'm going to start to mix this all together. And it's kind of chunky right now, so try and get it as smooth as you can. But since the potato is kind of chunky to begin with, just do your best. Okay, so we're getting this to a pretty smooth consistency, and it's looking good. So we're going to come over to our pan, and we're going to put it on about medium heat. These are pretty strong ovens, so you want to be sure not to burn it. And we're just going to take some canola oil and spray it over it. And we'll let that heat up for a bit, and we'll continue mixing this. And also, once we've cooked our pancakes, we're going to start making a wonderful maple syrup sauce like I talked about earlier. It's going to be really great. Alright, so our pan is hot enough now, and we're just going to start to pour a little bit of batter into the center here. Oop, that's a lot. And we'll try and get this to be as circular as possible. Not as thin as the crepes we did last time, though. Alright, and we'll let that cook. The sweet potato pancakes are probably my favorite dish at the Pancake Pantry, which is why I really wanted to be able to do them for you. It's really an excellent dish. So if you don't want to go out and try this yourself, then I really recommend at least going there and getting some, because they're really, really excellent. Alright, so our pancake has started to bubble a little bit on the surface, which is your indication that it's about time to flip it. So we're going to go ahead and get our spatula underneath it and flip. We have a nice golden pancake, so we're just going to let that cook some more. And yeah, and then we'll make a second pancake, so that we got a couple to eat. Alright, so our pancake looks to be about pretty well done, so we're going to take it off and put it on a plate. Alright, that's our first pancake, and we're going to start a second one. And while it starts to cook, we're going to make our syrup. So we're going to just some more batter. Move the batter off to the side now. Alright, so while that's cooking, we're going to get our other ingredients. And so we're going to begin by taking 2 tablespoons of butter, adding that into a pan, and we're going to start to melt that. Again, on fairly low heat, because butter is really sensitive and it can melt very easily. Alright, and now that our butter has finished melting, we're going to add half a cup of heavy cream. One and a half teaspoons of brown sugar. And a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Alright, and I'm adding a little bit of maple extract, about a 1/4 teaspoon. So I'm going to put that on the stove and mix it up a bit. And while that's cooking, our pancake is ready to be flipped. We go ahead and flip it, and it's nice and golden brown, which is good. Alright, so we'll continue to mix our sauce a little bit, or our syrup, I mean. Alright, and our second pancake looks to be about done, so we're going to go ahead and scoop it on off and add it to our plate. And now we're going to turn off the heat on the stove and kind of put that back. And our sauce is beginning to bubble a bit, so that'll help it thicken up. And we're just going to let it cook until it gets a little bit thicker, like a syrup consistency, because that's what it is. Alright, so our maple cream syrup is about done, so we're going to take it off of the stove. And it's a really great consistency, nice brown color, and it smells wonderful. Alright, and so we're just going to pour a little bit over our pancakes. And that is how you make your own version of sweet potato pancakes a la Pancake Pantry.
Alright, so now we're going to make cinnamon crunch bagels like the kind you find at Panera, and these are probably my favorite bagel anywhere. They're not too good for you, but they taste so delicious that I just gotta try it out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make some yeast and prepare it for our bagels to use. And with this yeast, you're going to want to use warm water to activate it. So I'm going to run my sink a little bit just so the water gets warm. That's good enough. And we need 1.5 cups. So I'm going to add this cup to this bowl right here. Then I have a 1/2 cup measure. There we go. And then I have 2 tablespoons of sugar, and the whole thing's going to go in eventually, but we're going to add about half of that right now. And then I have a packet of yeast, and this is 2 1/4 tablespoons. Our recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of yeast, so this is close enough. But they do sell yeast that doesn't come in packet form, so if you need to measure it out, that's how much you're going to use. If you haven't seen it before, yeast is really cool. It's these kind of like brownish pellets that you put in. It's actually live cultures that react, and they're going to make our dough expand a lot. So that's all in there. I'm going to shake it around a little bit so it gets distributed in the water. And that's just going to sit there for about 5 minutes while the yeast is all being activated. It's going to bubble up, and then we're going to add it to our dough. So to make our dough, I have 4 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of cinnamon and a teaspoon and a half of salt. And then I'm going to add the rest of our sugar. So that's about a tablespoon. I'm going to add a tablespoon of cooking oil. And then finally, this is kind of our secret ingredient for this dish. I have cinnamon chips. And these are just like chocolate chips. They're the same kind of shape, but they taste really good. This really strong cinnamon flavor. And if you've ever had the Panera Cinnamon Crunch Bagel, you've probably noticed there's these little kind of clusters within the bagel of cinnamon flavor, and it's really strong. And we were wondering how they get these in there, and we figured out it's these things. You can find them at the market. They're actually pretty difficult to find. We had to go to 3 different markets to actually find them. But if you can't find them, there's a recipe for them. It involves cinnamon, shortening, some sugar, and apparently those ones make even better ones than you can find in packages. But these will do fine for us, and they'll save a lot of time. So I'm going to mix all these ingredients together. It's not looking like much right now. It's going to change a lot once we add our yeast and our water. Alright, and it looks like our yeast is just about ready. You'll know that it's activated when you see this foaming on the top of your water. And if you watch it happen, it's pretty cool. You'll see little bursts of white come to the top. So we're going to pour that in. I'm going to stir that a little bit in first. And the yeast, if you don't already know, that's what's going to allow our bagels to rise. You're going to use that when you make bread too, and it's the same principle. So I'm going to add the rest on in there. And we're going to stir this up. This is going to be a pretty thick dough, and we're going to need to knead it a lot so it gets that nice fluffy consistency when it bakes. So ideally we'd be using a mixer for this. They even have special hooks for making bread that you can put onto them, but obviously in our college dorm environment we don't have that nice of a mixer, so this nice wooden spoon works just fine. Alright, so it's pretty well mixed. I'm going to mix it with my hands a little bit, just so we can get every last bit of flour incorporated. And this, I'm actually going to be doing this for a while after I get it all mixed in. You're going to have to knead this for a long time, and it's about 10 minutes, and that might seem like a lot of work just for bagels, but the kneading's really essential to activate the gluten in the flour. And that's what allows it to have that nice consistency that we're used to for bread. So let's just get these last bits of flour in here. And then I'm going to transfer it to a baking sheet that I've covered in flour. And that's where we're going to knead it for about 10 minutes. Let's get these little pieces of dough here. And if your dough is looking a little dry, you can add some more water to it. I think ours will be okay though. So everyone kind of has their own little style for kneading. I like to just take the edge, fold it on top, and press it down again. Like I said, we're going to do this for 10 minutes until our dough is nice and smooth. So once I finish up this kneading, I'm then going to separate the dough into 10 individual balls. We're going to let those balls rise for 10 minutes. And then we're going to shape it into individual bagel shapes and let that rise for another 20 minutes. Before I roll out these balls, I'm going to coat my tray with flour to make sure the balls don't stick. And you might have to do this several times while you're rolling them out to make sure that you get them nice and coated with flour. Once we finish this up, we'll be making our topping, which is made out of a 1/4 cup raw sugar, a 1/4 cup brown sugar, and 4 tablespoons of cinnamon. I'm going to get out a 1/4 cup of brown sugar and add that to our topping. finally, we're going to add 4 teaspoons of cinnamon to this mixture. We're going to stir it up completely until it's nice and evenly stirred, and then we're going to set this aside to use later once our bagels are boiled. Next thing we're going to do is roll out our dough so we can make the bagel shapes, but before I do that, I'm going to set a pot of water on the stove to boil. Alright, so now we've made all 10 of our bagels, and the holes might look a little big. That's okay. The holes tend to close up when you're baking them and boiling them, so if you made holes the size that you'd expect bagels holes to look like, they'd probably seal up completely. So these should close up to the right size. Now I'm going to put them in this oven. It's set to about 150, 175 degrees. It's just our warming setting. And we're actually going to let these bagels rest again. They're pretty lazy bagels, but you got to let them do that if they're going to taste really good. So we're going to set this timer for 20 minutes. You could even do 30 minutes if you really want, but it should be sufficient. And when they're done, that's when we're going to boil them. Alright, so it's been just about 20 minutes, and our bagels probably have had enough time to rest by now. They've just been warming in the oven, and they look really nice. You can see they've expanded a lot, and the holes are just about the right size. So we've got our water boiling. You probably didn't need to start it boiling as early as I said, but it's definitely ready by now. So I'm just going to take out a slotted spatula, which will help us boil them. And what we're going to do is place them in the boiling water, as many as we can fit in there, for about a minute on each side, and then we're going to turn them over. I think I can get about 3 in. Alright, these bagels have boiled for just about a minute on each side, so I'm going to take them out of the water. And before I forget, I'm going to turn my oven up to about 450. That's what we're going to bake our bagels at. So by the time we're done boiling, it should be ready. Put 3 more of these in. Be very careful with this water, it's very hot. And you're going to want to try to lower your bagels in like I'm doing here, not toss them in because that's going to splash the boiling water out. This is the mixture of sugar, brown sugar, and cinnamon that I made before. We're just going to do this very simply. We're going to brush the butter onto the bagel, dip the bagel in this, then put it back on the tray. And once all our bagels are prepared, we're ready to bake, and that's the final step. So you'll finally get to taste these. This one so we get the nicer side up. Okay, and let's turn our water off. Alright. So I'm going to start with the bagels that I boiled first, so that way they're not still scorching hot. So just like that, brushed a little butter on. I'm going to roll it around in here, make sure as much of this gets on as possible. We want a nice thick layer so it crunches really well. A little more. Alright. Like I said before, the sugar is going to melt on top and it's going to form a really solid piece of the crunch, so that's what we're looking for. Here we go. Alright, they are all ready. I'm going to wash some of that melted butter off my hands. And since we have a little topping left, what I'm going to do is just sprinkle it on top, just to get it as cinnamony as possible. So, look for some of the areas that your bagels might not have picked up the topping. Try to get it on there. Now when we bake them, we're not going to flip them, and a lot of times when you're making bagels you do want to do that if you don't have a topping like we do, and that's going to make it cook a lot more evenly and just really improve the appearance of it, but in our case it would destroy our topping. So we're just going to put it in for 20 minutes just like our other times, and after that we should have some beautiful bagels. Okay. It's been just about 20 minutes, so we're going to take our bagels out of the oven. There we go. They look beautiful. The sugar's gotten nice and crispy. It's going to make that beautiful crunch topping that we were looking for. And that's it. It's been a lot of work, but it's worth it. These are delicious bagels.
Hi, I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Juliana.
And to fit with the whole theme of imitating popular dishes, we're going to do P.F. Chang's lettuce wraps. So we're going to take some chicken, brown it up, add in some spices, add in some vegetables, and put it in lettuce wrap, and we'll be good to go. So first, I'm going to let Juliana take some chicken and put it in the pan to brown it.
So we have our pre-warmed pan, and I'm just going to spray it with some canola oil so that it doesn't stick. And we have it at about like medium-high heat so that this will brown fairly quickly. And then, there we go. So we're just like going to lightly brown it, and as soon as it starts to change color, we'll take it off.
Very nice. You can hear it sizzling, just slowly cooking. And don't worry if it's not completely cooked. We'll cook it some more later in the pan. But yeah, this is actually one of the really popular dishes for P.F. Chang's. Basically everyone who goes there gets it. So if you haven't tried it, you should. It's very popular. Some people get it as an appetizer. I like to get it as an entree. Have an entire roast myself. Normally not necessary. Normally comes pretty big. But we'll make a medium-sized recipe right now.
And it's not even that hard to make. This is actually pretty fast. And you can easily do it with in a kitchen like this. So we're just going to put this on a plate off to the side, and then we're going to do the vegetables in the same dish. So can you pass me the carrots, the mushrooms?
So
So here's some carrots.
Got a cup of carrots.
And then we're going to have
Like water chestnuts.
water chestnuts, which are my favorite personally.
And then a cup of mushrooms.
And then there's also garlic and green onions. So this will smell really good when it's cooking.
The onions and garlic will give it an amazing flavor.
And you really just want to mix this up really nice and good and get a nice consistency there.
So while she does that, I'm going to start the sauce. We're going to put the sauce over the chicken and the vegetables later, but it's good to have it ready. So first we're going to take this mixture. This is a mixture of honey and chili. We combined it before just so it's easier to pour, but the honey is about a tablespoon of honey and the chili is about a teaspoon. So just pour it in there. It's a little goopy, but it'll mix soon, so just get as much as you can out of there. And the chili's going to add a ton of flavor too. It's a very, very condensed flavor. Alright, like so. And next we'll take this spice. This spice has a tablespoon of hoisin, a tablespoon of oyster sauce, and a tablespoon of soy sauce. So that's going to be a ton of flavor as well. So pour that in there. Get as much out. Alright, looking good. Alright, so the last ingredient is oil. We just have normal oil. It was just about a teaspoon and a half of oil. So we're just going to pour that in. Alright, and with the oil was a little bit of rice vinegar, which will add some flavor too, add nice consistency. Alright, now we're going to take a little bit of ginger and just put it in the sauce. You can cut it, you can grate it. We're going to grate it because it's more fun, let's be real. So just nice and easy like that. Careful with your fingers. And just, we choose a relatively small grater. We want it to be relatively thin consistency. We don't want any chunks of ginger in there, that'd be kind of weird. And this way it'll spread all throughout the sauce. So just really work on grating it. And because the ginger is a little bit moist, it might stick to the back of the grinder. So don't be afraid just to grab a knife or a spoon or your fingers and just pull it out. And make sure it goes into the sauce as opposed to hanging on the grinder or the grater. So yep, like so. And a nice bit of ginger. Alright, I'm going to mix this up, and then I think we're almost ready to combine.
Yep. And this is going to have some very strong flavoring. It's going to be delicious.
How are the vegetables going, Juliana?
I think they're just about ready.
Good.
Okay. So, should I turn the heat down and we can combine?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
Alright, so the vegetables are all cooked. Now we're going to find the chicken and the sauces together and mix them up and cook them for a little bit more, and then we'll be ready to put them in the lettuce wraps. Alright, so you can hear the sizzle, and trust us, it smells amazing.
And you just want to really get all the vegetables nice and covered in our sauces.
Yep, just keep it stirring. Even though we turned the heat down, it's still hot, the pan's still hot, so it's going to keep cooking them with all the oils. It'll be great.
And the flavor is really going to get soaked up by all these vegetables. Okay, and then we're just going to add the chicken now and really mix that in well with everything else. So you also want to get the sauce onto the chicken pieces, and they're nice and brown from before. And so this is still on low heat, so this is going to be nice and hot when we're ready to add it to the lettuce.
Smelling good.
Okay, so now we're just going to spoon this into our lettuce. And just be nice and generous with that.
Looking good. It's the perfect consistency. You want some sauce on it, but you don't want it so runny that it leaks. So this actually turned out really well.
And if your sauce is too thick, which is possible, you can always just add a little bit of water to make it a little bit thinner. But ours actually worked out really well, so we didn't have to do that.
Alright, looks good. And then for a final touch, here, go to this side. Okay, we have these rice sticks that are going to add a nice little garnish to the top of it.
So we're just going to crush those over the top. And it's going to be a fun little crunch in our lettuce wraps.
Just take a little bit out, like so, and just nice and gently put some rice sticks in there. It's a little messy. They're a little bit tough, but they'll taste really good when you add them in there. Like that. And there you have it, right?
Our P.F. Chang style lettuce wraps.
My name is Sasha, and now we're going to be making Chick-fil-A sandwich. So for every other dish, we've been kind of choosing like the restaurant's most like famous thing, but you know, when it comes to Chick-fil-A, this is their basic sandwich, and so it wasn't really tough to choose what we're going to make. So to start off, I'm just going to go ahead and start the pan up on a kind of a low heat because I'm going to be adding a layer of oil to it for the frying, and you know, if it gets too hot, you're going to have oil splattering everywhere, and you're going to have a few burns and a trip to the hospital. It's not going to be fun. So just enough to like cover the pan a little bit, and I'm putting mine on like medium to a little bit less than medium heat. So while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and start pounding the chicken. We're going to do that to like flatten it out a little bit. So what I have here is some parchment paper, and I'm just going to take the roll out, put the chicken kind of in the middle of it so I can get it on both sides. And so what I'm going to do is flatten it out with another frying pan now. So let me just go grab that. Got a big one, so I just use a lot of force. So, you know, this one a little bit. Just make sure you get it nice and flat. Okay, I think I've beaten that chicken up pretty well, so, you know, I'm just going to put this in the sink because it's the bottom of it's touched raw chicken through the parchment paper, and you just want to be super safe. So I've done that. You can tell that it's kind of already flattened a lot more than what we started with, which was our goal. So I'm just going to go ahead now and get an egg and beat it, and that's going to help us to add the breading to our chicken, which is going to be important for that frying. So this is just simple. I have one egg in a bowl. I'm just getting a fork and just mixing it together. Pretty straightforward stuff. Okay. So our egg is nice and beaten. So I'm going to go ahead and make the sauce. So what I have here is a half a cup of honey mustard and a teaspoon of barbecue sauce. So I'm just going to mix those together. And this is Chick-fil-A's special sauce, which I didn't know that they had it, but apparently if you ask them at the counter, they will give you some. It's like a famous sauce of theirs. So if you've never had it before, keep that in mind next time you go to Chick-fil-A. Okay, so I just scooped out as much of that barbecue sauce as I could, and now I'm just going to mix the two together. Okay, so now our sauce is mixed. It's looking pretty good. So I'm going to put this away. Let me just go check on the pan. It's getting pretty hot, so it should be ready to go soon. So what I'm going to do now is just, this breading that we have is in season, so I just took a little bit of normal poultry seasoning and I'm just going to sprinkle on a little bit of that, just to give it a little bit of flavor. Not too much because it's pretty strong, but, just a little bit. And then, let me just grab the spoon to just mix that together to distribute the poultry seasoning to all the breading. And that'll, see, I can already smell that. It'll definitely add some flavor to our breading and to the chicken. Okay, so that's good. So what I'm going to do now is going to grab this egg, just make sure it's still beaten well. And I'm just going to grab the chicken off the paper, make sure it gets really coated in the egg, so I'm just going to flip it around and just like get the chicken nice and just egg all over it, because that'll help, like I said, the breading to stick on. So I'm just going to rotate that, flip it around a few times, and getting most of it. I'm also going to make sure it gets on the edges, because if you flip it around, it might just get on top and bottom. Make sure you get on the edges too, because I'm going to want breading all over this. So now that that's done, I'm going to transfer this over to there. Just move this out of the way. And now I'm just going to make sure that this is well coated. You're going to want to make sure to get a lot of the breading on, because after it fries, it might, it'll, like, you should get it to the point where you can't really see the chicken layer anymore, because that'll be the style of Chick-fil-A that we want. It'll be very much like a fried chicken sandwich. So let's go for it. I'm going to put this on the pan now. Let's hope we don't get too much splatter from the oil. There we go. That's more or less what I was hoping for. So you can tell it's just hot enough where it's sizzling and it's making a good noise. It's definitely frying it, but you don't want it to like explode the second you put it on the actual pan, because that wouldn't be fun and it would kind of ruin your dish. So while that's going, I'm just gonna get everything else ready. Got my buns here, and I have my pickles to add on Chick-fil-A's signature 2 slices of pickles. And since I did touch the raw chicken, before I handle too much stuff, I'm going to want to wash my hands very thoroughly. So that's good. And you can definitely tell it's making a good sound. It's starting to smell good too. Alright, just grab a spatula and get ready to flip it soon. Still looks like it's going to take a little bit more time though. I'll just peek under it really quickly. Actually, let me go ahead and flip it now, because it looks like it's starting to brown. Just gently, again, so you don't splatter. Add that on. You can see that's very nice color. So while this is finishing up, I'm just going to get ready to plate this chicken by just grabbing 2 pickles, 2 slices. Just going to put those 2 on one side of the bread. And then I'm going to dab on a little bit of the sauce onto the other side. Just make sure that's thoroughly mixed. I mean, again, how much you want to put on is really up to your personal taste. I'm just going to put on a little bit. Should be good. Alright. So I'm going to go back to this chicken now. Okay, so I think it's just about ready to take off now. I just made sure to cook it pretty thoroughly because it's a pretty thick chicken breast. It might actually be a little bit thicker than what you'll get at Chick-fil-A, but when it cooks in, it kind of comes back on itself. So maybe just pound it a little bit more if you want to get it nice and thin. So I'm going to turn off that heat. It's really starting to feel pretty heavily now. Take that off for a second, cool down. So I'm more or less ready to just take this. There we go. Actually, before I do this, I'm just going to grab a little bit paper towel. Again, more of a personal thing, but this has just been frying in oil, so I'm just going to pat it down a little bit because you can see how much of the grease is coming off. So let's just get rid of that. Alright. Not too much of the breading came off, so that's fine. That's been fried on there. Just going to grab it now, put it onto the bun, and just grab the other side and put it on. And there we go. Nice and simple. We got our Chick-fil-A sandwich.
That's it for today, so I hope you've enjoyed seeing how your favorite restaurant dishes can be made just as good at home. Next episode is a really special one. It's called The Feast, and it's a contest for all our viewers. What you're going to do is go online to VTV's Facebook page and submit a photo of your favorite recipe. Then you're going to get your friends to like VTV's Facebook page and then like the photo of your recipe. The top 4 photos will be made into dishes on Kitchenventions, and if you have one of those recipes, you're going to get to eat the feast that we'll be making. So it's great incentive for you to go and submit a recipe. Make sure to tune in next month and submit your recipes.